Hello and welcome to British English with me, Alexandre. Here we are again, where we're gonna be reviewing another BBC News article, and it might not be different. It's gonna be about the UK because we're emphasizing the English culture in that channel. Today, we're gonna be talking about another very updated topic, which is about UK politics and also geography, all this stuff, geopolitics to be better. In this article, I'm gonna demonstrate that it is possible to improve your vocabulary by reading English articles, for example, out aloud. Because when you read out aloud, your ears are listening, hearing to the words, and that's an effective way for you not to forget them. Okay, so let's go through the headline today. In this headline we have here, reluctant statesman Rishi Sunak turns focus to foreign affairs. So he turns focus from one thing to another. This article is from the bbc.com/news UK politics. It has been published, it has been updated 8 hours ago. Okay, so let's go through that article. We might say reluctant statesman. What's a statesman, by the way? Let's check the meaning. Statesman. Well, according to Oxford Learners' Dictionaries, statesman,
Statesman,
statesman. The definition is a man who's a wise, experienced, and respected political leader. For example, the party's elder statesman. So we're talking about Rishi Sunak, which is the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. So again, here it says, reluctant statesman Rishi Sunak turns focus to foreign affairs. As you can see from that picture, Rishi Sunak is on the left, and this man on the right is Volodymyr Zelensky, Ukraine's president. Okay, let's read what's said below that picture. Rishi Sunak's priorities on entering office were domestic, but he has become increasingly engaged in events in Ukraine and the Middle East. This text has been written by James Landale, diplomatic correspondent from BBC News, UK. Okay, so let's go through the text. When Rishi Sunak entered 10 Downing Street in October 2022, he had little experience in foreign affairs. His priorities were largely domestic, to try to repair the UK economy after the COVID pandemic and revive the Conservative Party's electoral fortunes. Yet in recent days, the Prime Minister has asserted himself on the global stage more emphatically than many might have expected. He has gone to war against the Houthis in Yemen, the only European leader to send armed force to join the United States-led airstrikes. He has put Britain at the forefront of the pro-Ukraine alliance, promising increased military support and signing a new security pact with Kiev, all while US and European Union allies hesitate amid division and fatigue. I traveled with Mr. Sunak on his recent trip to Kiev and saw firsthand how the Prime Minister handled both the Red Sea and Ukraine crisis at the same time. And what struck me was how far Mr. Sunak has had to come in the 15 months he has been in office, from reluctant statesman to engaged international actor. Mr. Sunak was the only European leader to join the US in going to war against Yemen's Houthi rebels. When the Prime Minister replaced Liz Truss, his foreign policy appeared limited to promising continued support for Ukraine. Calling President Macron of France a friend was seen as a bold act compared to his predecessor's hesitation. Mr. Sunak's 5 priorities were mostly domestic. The only foreign consideration was stopping boats of migrants crossing the English Channel. As his first year in office progressed, the Prime Minister showed at times what seemed like introspective instincts. He flirted diplomatic favors by ordering a corporate-style audit of UK military support for Ukraine. At the G20 summit in New Delhi, he seemed more focused on national matters, fostering a UK-India trade deal, talking to EU partners about his migration policy. Mr. Sunak chose not to attend the United Nations General Assembly in New York. I spent much time there being asked by diplomats why the new Prime Minister stayed away, missing an opportunity to meet many world leaders. In November, the Prime Minister, snubbed his Greek counterpart, cancelling a meeting at short notice after Kyriakos Mitsotakis demanded the return of the Parthenon marbles during a BBC interview. And while Mr. Sunak has chosen so far not to visit Germany's Chancellor Olaf Scholz in Berlin, he has attended a conference of right-wing parties in Italy. The view in Whitehall. What does Whitehall means, by the way? Let's check this out. Whitehall. Whitehall, a street in London where there are many government offices. The view in Whitehall was that Mr. Sunak was uninterested in foreign affairs, more engaged on electoral and economic priorities. This impression was confirmed to many by the appointment of Lord Cameron as Foreign Secretary. Diplomats and officials interpreted these as Mr. Sunak outsourcing foreign affairs to a more experienced predecessor. Whitehall insiders saw Lord Cameron's appointment as Mr. Sunak outsourcing foreign policy to his more experienced colleague. The Prime Minister all but confirmed this impression at the liaison committee before Christmas. What's a committee, by the way? Liaison committee, liaison. What's a liaison? It's a noun. A relationship between two organizations or different departments in an organization involving the exchange of information or ideas. So it's a complex committee. The Prime Minister all but confirmed this impression at the liaison committee before Christmas, asked by one MP, Member of Parliament, if he considered himself a leader on the world stage. He wriggled visibly with discomfort. I think others will make that determination, he said. Yet only a few weeks later, Mr. Sunak has put British servicemen and women in harm's way, making choices other European heads of government have avoided. So what has changed? One answer is that he had no choice but to respond to global events. As he admitted to the liaison committee, the increasingly complex and hostile international environment is something that, over the past year, has occupied more of my time than one might have anticipated. A second answer is that he was always ready to be proactive on the world stage, just in a different way. Take Ukraine, where Boris Johnson was an instinctive supporter of Kiev. Mr. Sunak's more rational, talking about investing in European security. The difference is that the PM is pragmatic as opposed to Johnson, who was philosophically all in. All in means inclusive. One senior defense source told me, Mr. Sunak's advisors say that when he engages with foreign policy in detail and reaches a conclusion, he can be as hawkish as Mr. Johnson. Hawkish people are people who prefer war instead of deciding things politically. Can be as hawkish as Mr. Johnson, if not more so. They say he has a greater risk appetite than some imagine. They point to the early support for Ukraine getting tanks and long-range missiles, not fearing the threat of Russian escalation. And in the Red Sea, they note his readiness to deploy RAF warplanes when many European allies, such as the French and Italians, demurred. That said, Mr. Sunak's domestic instincts can still stay his hand. White House sources say serious consideration was given to promising Ukraine a multi-year package of military support, not just 1 year, to send a clear signal of UK strategic patience to Moscow. But those sources say Mr. Sunak became old chancellorish and saw the issue through the prism of Treasury rules. There were discussions about whether part of the money could be promised for some years, a technical solution that muddied the waters and was dropped. A third pointer to Mr. Sunak's increased global activism is simply time. The longer prime ministers are in office, the more they find foreign affairs unavoidable and at times alluring compared to the messy compromises of home. Ukraine's parliament gave Mr. Sunak a standing ovation as he promised more military aid. This was apparent when Mr. Sunak addressed Ukraine's parliament, an emotional event where MEPs bellowed their national anthem. To bellow means to yell. Held a minute's silence for the dead, and he cheered the leader of a major ally, the first visit this year, was showing them some love after months of what they see as growing Western indifference. I come from the world's oldest parliament to address the world's bravest, Mr. Sunak told them. For a man seen by some as a rational technocrat, he was clearly affected by the emotion, and for a prime minister behind in the polls, repeated standing ovations from any audience are not to be sniffed at. Rishi Sunak has not suddenly become some global interventionist seeking to reshape the world in Britain's interests. But not too is he as unengaged in foreign affairs as some would have it. He may not be prime minister beyond an election later this year, but until then, there will be no shortage of a foreign policy and the decisions he makes will matter. Okay, that's it for today. I've just finished reading that news article from BBC News UK. I hope you've enjoyed it. And please, I'd like to invite you to subscribe to the channel to help it grow so we can help English learners all over the world how to increase their vocabulary, their fluency, and at the same time understanding how it is spoken. It's written in a way, but it's spoken differently. And this is a really effective way to improve vocabulary. I can say that because I've improved mine that way. When you read out loud, your memory sort of grab the meanings of the words and to increase it exponentially. I hope you have enjoyed it. Please give it a like, share the content, and that's it for today. Cheers. Bye.